All right, so I know there's a lot going on. But what I want to focus on is some really uplifting things that I've seen, and really, more so positioning and talking about the people who are making impact and changing people's lives, sharing opportunities, and just the people that are always helping. And I like to think that I'm one of those people, and kind of pride myself on it, honestly. So I posted something this morning on LinkedIn from within my educator network and community called EduHustle, which I actually originally started on Facebook. Started as a Facebook group. The Facebook group is right around like 2,000 people, but then I kind of pivoted and doing a little bit more focus on LinkedIn, just because I knew that that's where pretty much all of the people who were sharing and producing and creating a lot of more professional efforts kind of were living and connecting. So did that for the networking purposes and kind of building out what I was doing, but also bringing that information back to the folks on Facebook who might not be as active on LinkedIn while encouraging them to become more active on LinkedIn. Um, so within Edu Hustle, yeah, the idea there was supporting educators in their career journey, whether that's pivoting to a new role in teaching or something beyond teaching, based on my experience, my background, and just being able to really help other people maneuver. So I've kind of created a collective effort and movement around it. And the post that I shared this morning was actually a message that I got, kind of an exchange from one of the members who I was have been fortunate to actually get to know somewhat personally, and like talk to this person about situation and what they're looking for, and just sharing opportunities, resources whenever things come up. So I posted it. I actually got a connection through LinkedIn with a woman who was looking directly to hire educators for a role that she had. She runs a private school, and we had conversation and met and talked, and I shared the opportunity that she had available within the Facebook group, passed it around to my network, and had a bunch of people apply and kind of get involved and were interested in, or like at least expressed interest. Um, and with that, they were able to directly email, right, the person who had the opportunity in their hand to hand over. So a message that I got was basically, they went through the channels of contacting and applying and got the job. So, that was an amazing thing. And it's always good to hear that. Like cool thing is I've heard that enough times now. I got the job based on supports I've offered, coaching or even just direct connections, right? DM uh, conversations or introductions or whatever. But it never gets old though. Basically, when you help people like that, that never goes away. That feeling of being like, oh yeah, I like. Granted, I didn't give you the opportunity, or I didn't necessarily hire you myself, but I'm happy that I was able to pass something along that will help and benefit somebody else. So it's really now just thinking about where we are with a lot of things, industry, education, whatever, business. Um, I'm really leaning into, and always have been, but for other people, like the folks who are really like helping people. Like I thoroughly believe that you either help or get out the way. And I mean that in the most respectful way possible, but at the same time, like move if you're not actually helping people, especially if you're claiming to help people and you don't. And we've all seen a lot of things kind of pop up, more so in recent years, of course, with the pandemic and people coming out of the woodwork and assuming or kind of claiming, right, making proclamations that they can do certain things or assist you in certain ways or what have you. But then I personally have heard of, like, the horror stories around. people essentially being taken advantage of, right? I paid for this and I got this. Like it's yeah, that doesn't align, doesn't measure up. So I know a lot of people who are really offering and adding a lot of value, which are people that you'll primarily see me supporting and kind of backing. And that doesn't necessarily have to be due to anything monetary. Like I always like it's just if you're doing great stuff and it's helping other people, it's beneficial, it's making an impact, then I'm gonna support it regardless. Like just whatever it is, what it is. Um, but I just think that has to come to the forefront right now, where we are in space and time and um, society, just especially with thinking about technology, right? And how things are progressing and growing. Um, Interestingly, I was doing some research into what's happening as far as like the ed tech space or the education industry space, and there's been somewhat of I think, a recent decline in the number of companies, like ed tech companies that have been launched. I think the percentage basis is dropped a little bit since like 2021, I think was when I most recently saw. There's been a dip. And also just thinking about the nature of what's being offered and what's being pushed in terms of the claim for solutions for certain things within the space. But at the same time, um, again, some of the access and where we've seen kind of dips in availability of funding and stuff like that, like with ESSER funds, for example. Like that's been a thing where, once that kind of fizzled and went away, um, schools and districts and folks in the system being able to pay for some of these, ed tech or education like solutions in the industry, right? These tools or resources or platforms, those things kind of fizzled and dwindled a little bit too. So you don't necessarily see the, all of these big, kind of ideas in education or ed tech, um, being pushed or really funded or supported. It's like you really got to come with like something that has a basis to stand on, right? It actually has to help. It has to actually serve that purpose, and not necessarily just claim that it does that. And that's the same thing with, individuals and what we're seeing in like even, consulting or, um, any kind of the entrepreneurship space. Um, and I want to encourage everybody who is really helping people, like keep pushing and collaborate. And like if me, I'm here to connect and network. Like if you got opportunities available or you are, creating something amazing, then like let's support that. And think about creating things that are amazing. I want to shout out actually a person who I interviewed for Black AI Media for the Road to 100, who has been like amazing in my life since I've met them. And it's if you're not following Marie Roker Jones, she's amazing. And I'm thinking about it now because I'm wearing this shirt. Hey, kind of stand up so people can see it. So it's the I am the algorithm shirt. Um, and Marie was the first person to call I am the algorithm a brand. Where for me it's a more of like a campaign that's running under Edu or excuse me, not Edu Hustle, but Black AI Media. And it's essentially thinking about the notion of like how we approach, I guess, like Black history, where you might see, in February, a person spotlighted every day. But I thought about like, well, you know, I've always kind of been beyond the idea of like, all right, February is designated for this. It's like, no, like, there's 365 days in a year. Like you can celebrate people, um, every day, regardless of whatever. And whoever it looks, that person tends to be, whether it's in Black history or just in the tech space or in your family, like you can show appreciation every day. It doesn't have to be designated for one specific time. But thinking about Black history, with I am the algorithm, um, it's a focus on Black people globally who are making an impact in technology in particular. And the cool thing that I found is most of the people that I've profiled there, and it's on, you can go to the Black AI Media site and check it out under I Am the Algorithm. It's right there on the front like landing page, homepage, I should say. And yeah, the cool thing is that like most of these people, I think, I want to say almost all the people I've kind of spotlighted are still alive, right? These are still people who are pushing forward. They're doing speaking engagements. You can like go to YouTube and listen to them talk, at recent conferences and stuff like that, which is really awesome. Which to me means that younger people, right, youth, and then just even people in community overall that might not necessarily have been aware of these individuals can now get access. And another cool thing is that a lot of the people who are doing amazing work are actually relatively, I guess, in a digital sense, kind of tangible, right? Like you can connect with them and talk to them and like engage with what they're doing, and in my case, potentially, interview them, right? Bring them onto the platform and again, kind of provide a little bit more promotional aspect and exposure and push and just kind of like support for what they're doing. So again, for people who are doing the work and helping people, keep helping people. And at the same time, look at other people who are helping people and see if you can like amplify and like multiply the impact, because that's kind of where my brain is. Um, so building beyond that, right? Think about, again, I am the algorithm, and it's like it just this face just turned out really, really good. It's like really striking. I really appreciate it, the way that the graphic turned out. But other things, in the space of serving and supporting, I'm also finding that it's really important that we actually share what we're doing and tell people. Otherwise, it's kind of hard for us to feel any type of way about people not knowing about what we're doing if we don't tell them. So, in the effort of being better at that, I have been awarding STEM scholarships for Black high school students for the past 3 years. This will be the fourth year in memory of my mom, where people I've talked to have heard my story or anything like that, read any my book or I mean any of the stuff I really put out. My mom is always a consistent theme. I lost my mom to breast cancer when I was 10 years old. She was just 33 at the time, and I'm one of six children, so I'm the second eldest. So it's me, and then like my older brother and my four younger siblings. Lost her at younger ages than I did. So still relatively like fortunate in a way to have that time and have good memories. And yes, my mom was a big proponent of education. She was really big into STEM, and I don't even know if she like really knew what's, I guess, STEM. I don't know if it was like that was a tag or a label at that point in time. But she encouraged me to go into STEM space. Uh, and it's funny, I always joke and say, like, my mom wanted me to be a chemical engineer. And I'm always like, well, hopefully she's proud that, I became a chemist, because there's that. I kept the chemistry part of it, like the engineering, not so much. So yeah, honoring her memory every year for the past 3 years, going on 4 years now, with a scholarship, which has been great. Last year's winner was actually a young woman who plans to study computer science, and her goal is to combat bias in AI, uh, primarily looking at the judicial system. And um, her essay was great. Kind of laid out the wrongful arrest and convictions, primarily of Black men who were wrongfully recognized, by facial recognition, biometric software. So dealing with that. So I'm like, okay, that really helps yeah, for sure. So I was like, yes, definitely. Yeah, I thought that that was an amazing uh, focus. So how do we continue to grow and support efforts and missions like that? You know, like this, right? Helping. So that's great. So definitely check that out. I'm sharing the link all over the place. And if you've seen any of my like my landing page, you can go to like my personal AI assistant, Rick. Rick knows all about it, all about me at cedricscott.fyi, and engage with Rick. Kind of point you to stuff. Uh, Another thing, talking about helping, serving, supporting. As somebody who's an educator, uh, it's definitely important that we continue to create resources, create material that basically fill a void, um, and offer something that's not there. And probably 4 or 5 years ago, I began on that pathway with melanated mathematics, which a lot of people who have been watching what I'm doing or what have you are probably aware of, have seen it, heard of it maybe. But melanated mathematics, for anybody that doesn't know, is math and financial literacy content and learning resources for children. And it's written and infused in the context of Black history and culture. People ask me like, "Oh, is it only for Black students and Black families?" No, it's not, because the approach in terms of education, as I see it, is um, the concept of mirrors and windows. And I think for children that they definitely benefit from having both, right? Mirrors where they see themselves and reflected in the content, but then windows to actually see outside and view, the world. And just for me, too often, um, myself, my family members, uh, my students, they only saw windows in the content. So, we can create more mirrors. It's fine. Like, right. So here's just a quick glimpse. This is the level one financial literacy workbook. The cool thing about these books in particular, I mean, there's levels 1 through 3. Um, Level one is ages 5 through 7. Level two is 8 to 10. And level three is, I say 11 to 13, but really, because it's financial concepts and topics and information, really it's just the math that's at these certain levels, but the content or the concepts themselves, I should say, are universal because credit is credit, whether you're 5 or 55, I like to say. But the cool thing about these is that within the books, whether you get the physical version, which you can get on Amazon, or the digitals, which are available at Black AI Media, um, there are QR codes inside that lead to chatbots. So the idea here is that a student can basically do activities that are grounded in learning about managing your money, right? Saving, that type of thing. Framed in the context of putting your money into a Black-owned bank and learning about, the St. Luke Penny Savings Bank, for example, just as for some context. But then also building on that, you can go to this chatbot and say, how can I save $1,000 in a year? And it will give you that breakdown, right? Same thing for um, real estate, stocks, and investing, as well as the most recent components that I wrote, which were for credit. And yes, I wrote this before ChatGPT. So just for context, like literally wrote it and actually did take the time. So again, but that's a helpful measure, right? That I think is important. So for people out there who are creating things, if you have something that's supportive and helpful, like put it out and like let's continue to push and share those things. Melanated mathematics was actually kind of birthed out of, well, my awareness and understanding of the disparity of what's in a lot of content curriculum in schools and things like that. But it was more so even during the pandemic when uh, everybody was home, and I actually started getting a lot more involved in supporting in homeschool co-ops, and just like the homeschool community at large, and then in the Black homeschool demographic and community, saw the greatest increase percentage wise in terms of students who were being taught at home, and that's I think it's still a consistent measure if you look at it. So I was like, well, how do I support and assist there? Taught some classes, and then at the same time produce content, and it turned into workbooks and um, digital resources, cards, flashcards, game cards, and now actually building out, which is technically available, version one of an immersive learning platform. So basically, pretty much a video game, kind of metaverse space of the financial literacy aspect of melanated mathematics. Um, so connecting with folks there, and shout outs to Ed Prentice and Yep Nation for um, working with me on that, getting that going. But overall, the emphasis here is again help people wherever we can. And one of the notions that kind of really pushed this for me was I was listening to Earn Your Leisure, um, their podcast. I think it might have been Market Mondays. And one of the gentlemen, he shared kind of a strategy really that aligned with my belief in helping and looking out for people, which was, and this is back when I initially launched Edu Hustle, right? It was, figure out how you can help 1,000 people for free. And that stuck and resonated, and I was able to track that, right? And get actual metrics with resources that I was sharing. So looking at downloads, of course, the people that we had direct connections to, opportunities, jobs, regardless of what that looked like, contract, part time, full time, whatever, and then just building on the conversations, consultations, and I mean, yeah, I mean, here we are, fast forward a few years later, well beyond the 1,000 people mark for sure, in terms of services and supports. But that's a good kind of gauge. I think that really highlights things and removes you and your ego or whatever from the situation. So just something to consider. And yeah, no, um, Martin Luther King Day, just celebrated that. And one thing I like to share during that, like, just I know everybody's doing their posts and quotes and stuff like that. One thing I'm happy like kind of like to show off sometimes is like I have one of my tattoos actually. It's like busted clock is a quote. The time is always right to do what is right. It kind of like wraps all the way around to my wrist, everything. Um, So, if you're familiar, that's one of Dr. King's quotes. Probably, like, I guess, probably would be my favorite one, right? I got a tattoo. But just thinking about again the importance of uh, being helpful, um, looking out for yourself, same time, but not necessarily having to be selfish, uh, and yeah, just really driving and pushing to do the right thing, regardless of what that looks like, things that are favorable for yourself and for other people, and not causing any detriment or harm. But we do the best we can, and yeah, with that, I as always appreciate being able to just jump on here and ramble, and I will catch you all next time on the glitch. Peace.